Get your shine on. Get your glow up. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to myself and to you. We've been away a while, but we're back. Welcome to the Quintessential Queens podcast right here on IntellectualRadio.com. We're an iHeart radio station, and you can also check us out on YouTube. Today, I have in my midst a quintessential king. So quintessential queens don't mean we don't have our wonderful males on here. We do, we always do, and we welcome you. This young man I have known for many years. We worked together in behavioral health at a few hospitals, and he's a good friend of mine. I remember back when we were working, you were saying, I'm already into the cooking. I'm going to start my own business. I'm trying to bring the education about food and nutrition. I'm trying to bring it to everybody. I remember all that passion you had about it. That was some years ago. Now we back right here, and you have taken that passion and started your own business, and you're circling around here, the city, the county, teaching and demonstrating and teaching people about food and nutrition through cooking and eating. Everybody, please welcome Chef Dexter.
Thank you very much. I'm very appreciative to being on the show with you today, Miss D.
Tell me more about, first, let's start with your passion for cooking. Let's go there. Let's go there about that passion that led you to this.
So with me, so back in the day, my father, who is a very hardworking man, he's my idol. Shouts out to my dad. He worked and provided for all of us at the same time. He was the housekeeper, he was the protector. He was everything to me and my brothers and sisters. And before he went to work every morning, what he used to do is he used to make us breakfast and lunch before he left out every day religiously. Like it was something that we was just so used to doing. And so when I went to high school, they gave us an option to choose different strands that we wanted to be involved with. And I was familiar with cooking because that was something that I saw my dad do a lot. So it inspired me to join the culinary program at my school in high school, which led to me being, once I graduated, one of the top culinary art students in the city of Chicago.
Oh,
And I have to give it all to my
don't
father.
just skip past that part. Say that again. You graduated at the top of your class.
At Manly High School, I was the top of the class of culinary. I was also part of a program called Program Excel that we was allowed to go to college. I was part of that first crop of kids that went to college from high school and earned college credits through the culinary program.
And that's why you were still in high school, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So fast forward to right now. So we got I really like that you said you were looking at your father do these things. You saw him cooking and doing this for you every day, and wonderful to do every day, but we're definitely shouting out to dads this month. Why? Because Father's Day is next week. So this is wonderful to hear. Son watching his father do things, and then you picked up that trait and started Healthier Souls.
Oh,
Tell
yeah.
me about your business, Healthier Souls.
Well, the business came into fruition in 2019, and this was through the pandemic. It was when everybody was confused. Everybody seemed not to have no direction. I sat at home, and as I seen the world burn, I was led to be like, hey, how can I contribute more in what we're going through right now? How can I be a positive influence to our culture right now? And what I came up with is I wanted to educate our people more on eating healthy because that's what I went to school with. And I think a lot of our youth and all of our parents just kind of lost their way in regards of in the beginning stages of their life, going down the right path with eating. So in 2019, I established the organization Healthier Souls, and since then we have continued to build programming throughout the city of Chicago, and it actually led us to be where we're in this position right now, where we're talking to you.
That's great. That's great. I know you were telling me about how you're cooking and teaching the youth, and then how you are targeting underserved areas and in particularly food deserts, which are in underserved areas. And a lot of underserved areas are where we are. It's where our community is, where, Black people are. And there's a problem with being able to even get to the right food, the nutritious food. But your company, Healthier Souls, and you all have decided to do something about that. Tell me what you all did about it and what you continue to do about it.
So how we target the community is we start with the school system. The school system is the most vital, important part to us as people. It starts in the school system. And what we decided to do is we started to partner up with all of the schools, the available schools, get the criterias needed, the vendor's license, the insurance needed to be able to go into these different plethora of venues to show them, and not even to just show them something new, but actually just put things that's on the table that they might have not been experiencing for a while. So what we do is we go into public school systems, and we create live demonstrations through food education, and one-on-one services as well. This, what we do, it allows the students or the parents, because we do parenting program too, to see something consistently, something healthy weekly, and build on their nutritional value in their life. And the success rate of our students and our parents has been great. Every end of semester, it's just been, we've been getting amazing feedback, which is giving us more power to continue the program.
I like that you said you work with the parents too, because it's important to work with children, but it's also important to work with the people that are overseeing them, raising them, so that they get that same skill or that same knowledge about nutrition. Do you think that a lot of the medical problems we have in our community route back to how we're eating, like the increase in diabetes, the increase in high blood pressure or hypertension, maybe even some depression and anxiety? How can you relate that to how we're eating,
Mhm.
and what's the solution?
So studies show that 75% of African American folks that are inner city have diabetes. And study shows that people that are outside of the inner city, their life expectancy rate is longer. And that's because of the availability and the reach that they have of the things that they need to make their body be able to be strong day in and day out. So um, definitely, what I would think is that if we continue to um, work the program in the school systems, that will be the start. Because if the kids and the parents are knowing at this stage, early stages of their life, that they should be eating healthy, and they come into these programs that they don't have to pay for. These programs are being offered through CPS and various organizations. If they continue to go to these programs, they are already in a positive direction in regards of eating healthy.
So that's a good direction to start that journey.
Schools definitely.
School. So you're teaching kids and you're teaching parents so that they can raise their children with these things. Our grandparents and great grands that were raised in the South, they were eating healthy. They were eating well because they were growing their own vegetables, raising their own cattle, and raising their own hogs and pigs.
And the times are different now, right?
They were eating organic before organic was even labeled and popular.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to in the 90s, I never ate salmon because salmon was an inaffordable food for us to have. Now you can get salmon anywhere. You can have it. It's almost at every grocery store. It's at every restaurant. It's almost at every corner store. And that's because of the mass production of the food that they're making. um, there is a lot of people that's knowledgeable about the foods that they're eating. So those people are fine. The ones that stay in our surrounding suburbs and that stays next to the Whole Foods and the Peaks and all of those type of things, they have access. But that doesn't make up the majority of the people that's in our city. The majority of our people stay in the inner city.
And that's important. What you just said, access, that's food desert. You're talking about food desert, that our folks don't have access to the nutritious food. They
Mhm.
don't have access to the food that is going to help their bodies grow healthily and help their children's bodies grow healthily. So finance and access. And I
Mhm.
think I think the where we are right now, they're doing a better job because
Mhm.
there are more whole foods in places where you wouldn't think there should be one. It's still expensive though if you're shopping at
So
Whole Foods. Let's not forget that
let's
part.
speak on the expensive part real quick. Um, so you have inner city people that don't have the funding to go buy a bag of strawberries, a bag of oranges. These things are very expensive for one single person. Just me. Um, Now, if you are feeding a family of five, it's almost impossible to even think that week in and week out that you can do
That's
this.
right.
So, what is of the natural nature to do is for people to do what's best to stretch out the food.
Yes.
The program that we are putting in the school systems, we are buying some of the best quality foods, vegetables. We ain't even doing a lot of special things. We're just allowing what's supposed to be natural an option. What's supposed to be natural an option. So we coming in with strawberries, we coming in with watermelon, pineapples, and then we'll do something, a special dish of the day. And them being able to tap into this weekly is already we already fueling the kids. We're fueling, and they're getting used to the program week in and week out. And the overall see of the program, I would want our youth and our people to know what they blood types are, so they can eat off their blood types. A lot of people are not aware that from your blood type, you are supposed to eat certain foods. So I am a B positive. If I didn't know that I was a B positive, I would know something like avocado. Avocado and tomato are things that I love to eat. But because I'm a B positive, those things are harmful to me, just for me. So I have to eliminate those things from my diet so my acidity levels can stay balanced. A lot of people don't know this. I didn't, I'm 43 years old, and I didn't know that until about 3 years ago and
So,
how important that was for me.
so what Dexter is talking about, they're doing something very new where they're doing genetic testing to help you find the best way to eat, and it kind of was born out of folks trying to lose weight.
Hmm.
So they found out that if we look at your genetics and we look at your blood types, we can see what foods are best for you to help you lose weight, build muscle, and have a nutritious diet. So it's still very individual. Blood type is one of the things they look at. They look at other things as well, but that is something new that a lot of people are doing. Now, let's just say it's an option, everybody. Let's just say that's, where you're not running out to do this testing, and we have a lot of people that aren't going to go out and do the
Most definitely. Yeah.
testing. We still have You still have things to look at to determine what's best for you to eat. I know a lot of people a lot of people have stopped eating meat. They've adapted the Mediterranean diet, which is fish and vegetables. Then a lot of people have adopted certain tiers of veganism because you have many tiers of veganism. Not saying that there's anything wrong with meat. The problem we were having with meat, because that's a discussion we can get on, is how it was being prepared and what they were doing with the animals before they slaughter the animals, and then how you're preparing the meat, and then portions of meat. That has a lot to do with if you're unhealthy, and the fact that a lot of people they've been eating unhealthily, and you come with your high cholesterol and hypertension, the doctor is going to tell you lay off the pork, lay off the red meat. But that's because you already have problems now. You've come with some diagnosis that's going to affect you negatively. But if we can reverse some of that and add things into our diet, the healthy things into our diet, tell me how you feel about meat. First of all, let's go to the meat, not eat meat debate.
Okay, so my thoughts on that is that so I've been without pork since I was 18 years old, and I stopped eating red meat probably about 10 years ago. And it was no health concerns. These was choices that I decided that I wanted to make. I looked at the masses of the world, I looked at the family structure. I saw where I wanted to be. I always looked ahead and I say, I want to, when I'm at this point, I want to be this way. So to do that, I have to think about right now.
That's right.
So I have experience with a lot of that. And with programming, and it's a great thing you said that, I will say 85% of programming that I've done this year, I did non-meat options. So I did Beyond Meats, I did Beyond Chickens. I introduced that to school systems and parents all over the city of Chicago, and I got amazing reaction up out of it to push me to continue to move forward with giving people an option. It's the option is what it is. We're not trying to tell people how to live their life, but we giving them the options. We putting different plethoras of options on the table for them that they can have. So now when they go to establishment to get something to eat and they see something like a Beyond Burger, they can be like, I had that before and I know that's good. Let me get that. If we get one person to do that, we have made a change.
You done your goal. So that's
Mhm.
exposure. Now I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of meatless meat. That's what I call it. I
Okay.
just choose not to eat the meat. And why you gotta go beyond chicken? What's wrong with chicken? We love chicken just how it is. Why we going beyond chicken? I can understand beyond red meat, but beyond
Chicken with
chicken?
me was just it was an experience. I had a like I never even thought about giving up chicken, right? Like when we was rocking and we was working together, I was a chicken eating person. I ate a lot of chicken. I go to get 10 wings and slaughter them wings. But I had a very bad experience with it where I went to an establishment. I'm not going to say the establishment name, and I went to go get some wings, and I only asked for five. But when they brought the five out, they were supposed to be little wing dings. I felt like I was eating drumsticks.
Mm.
And that experience there where I was fighting through that meat was something I just felt like I never wanted to go through again in my life. You know what I'm saying?
So you gave up chicken?
Right there immediately. Never went back.
Well, I'm not giving up chicken, but I do eat red meat in moderation, and it's very light moderation. One of the reasons for me is because beef hangs around in the system a long time, and it takes a while to digest. So that's an issue for me
3 to 5 days.
to digest,
Hmm.
but then it kind of hangs around in your intestines a little longer
Hmm.
too. That's what people need to know. But if you eat well and you eat the things that are important to cleanse your intestines, that's why the options and knowledge is so important. For me, the reason I don't eat a lot of beef is because it upsets my I'm a nurse here, GI system, my stomach, and all of that, and I'm having a hard time moving my bowels and everything. So I eat it in moderation, which I think if we do things in moderation, we should be okay. But you must add the nutritious food into your diet in order to even understand the difference between what's bad for your body, what's good for your
And
body.
we in our programming all year, we pounded in the students and the parents' head balance, right? And every week we talked about understanding what the balance is, the understanding that you should have a protein, you should have a fiber and a carbohydrate, and what are the effects. We did that all season. Like if you got two carbs and a protein is like, what does that look like? If you have two fibers in one protein, if you have two fibers in one carb, what does those things look like? So just starting those conversations in the brains of our students and the parents it's everlasting, and we're going to continue to push that narrative moving forward.
moving forward. Great. I think that's wonderful. Tell us how people can get in touch with you at Healthier Souls. If
Oh
they
well,
wanted you to come to their schools, if they wanted you to do one-on-one teaching, how do they get in touch with you?
it's a plethora of ways. One of the ways is you can contact me directly. One is by my email, which is at healthiersouls@gmail.com. You can visit us on our website, which is www.healthiersouls.com. And we are on all social media platforms. Personally, my personal Facebook is Dexter Guthrie, which is my whole name, and on Instagram, which we are live right now, and on Facebook, it is Healthier Souls LLC. And my numbers are attached, and you can reach me directly from all avenues of those entities.
Okay, then that's what we need to know. Like, how can people find you to get this
And
wonderful
just please
plethora of knowledge?
follow us. You see that everything that we are doing in the community, we are posting it, we are putting it up, we are getting people more involved, more engaged, and we are hiring as well. We're looking for cooks and chefs as well.
I like that. So you went from passion to fruition, because I remember when you was talking about all of this stuff when we worked together. So we're going to shift gears here. It's Father's Day month. We got a father right here sitting
Yes,
next to me.
yes.
Why not take the opportunity to talk to you about all of this? Now, I am pointing out again that you said you grew up in a home with your father.
Hmm.
You watched him do many things that you admire, and then you turn around and do the same thing yourself. So, one of the things you and I were discussing, since we're talking about fathers and relationships, what do you think is missing in the relationships between Black men and women? What is missing in the relationships between Black men and Black women?
Um, there are a few things that are missing in the relationships with Black kings and Black queens. Um, some of the things I think that needs to be addressed would be family roots. I think that people's past with their family um, is a great indication of how moving forward they would, do well with being in a relationship with someone else. Um,
Be
some
more specific.
I feel like we don't do a good job of taking people's family roots into considerations in relationships.
What about the family roots? What about it?
Um, Mom structure, dad structure. You know, um, it's very hard to say that a woman can respect the man that she's in a relationship with if she don't respect the father
I feel the same way about men, because I pay attention to that. What's the relationship this young man has with
with
his
the mother.
mother?
100%.
I pay
Both
attention to
of them.
that too. I believe that if he's not respectful of his mom, or if he doesn't really like his mom,
How can that work?
it ain't gonna
Yeah,
work.
I've never seen it work. I don't see it working.
I shouldn't say it's not going to work, because there are things you can do to to fix those things for yourself. Things that you can, if you do some introspection, which is one of the solutions we were talking about that you brought up. But I don't want to digress too much. So you said family roots, paying attention to how somebody grew up is true. One of the things you did say, if you see a healthy relationship between your mom and dad, or if you grew up in the house with both parents and see a healthy relationship, we're talking about a healthy relationship,
Mhm.
that's the root you're talking about. But let's say there is an unhealthy trauma in where you grew up, unhealed trauma. How does that affect the relationships between our men and our women?
Um, that's okay. So you know, like the saying is you cannot love nobody until you love yourself. If you have unhealed trauma, then that's something that you are still dealing with. That doesn't go away until you deal with it. So how can you um, do a great job of managing a relationship or a marriage with someone when you're dealing with things that has been implanted in you for years that you haven't brought to the surface and laid to rest.
And I want people to know things that are brought to the surface and that you haven't dealt with and laid to rest, they come up in every aspect of your life.
And
They come
that's
up at
yes.
work, they come up in your friendships, they come up in your relationships with, whoever you're with. It rises to the surface all the time, and it's not always pretty and it's not always controllable, but we can do something about that.
Yeah, and the sad part about that is that you know, if that's still not addressed during that instance where it comes up, then the problem that you're dealing with at the time becomes the biggest problem. Not the unhealed trauma, but what the response was to everything that happened becomes that is now the new king of everything.
So the tip of the iceberg, like that ain't really the problem right
It ain't
now.
really the
The
problem.
problem is this huge pot of trauma you got underneath it.
Hmm.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. There were a couple other things we touched upon. You said you grounded family roots, unhealed trauma, lack of trust, lack of
Lack
accountability.
of trust, lack of accountability. And a lot of people struggle with accepting that those are things that they have issues with. Because you are beautiful, because you are big and you strong and you pay your bills, that doesn't mean that you lack having trust in a relationship or having accountability. And I think it started off with people need to understand what them terms actually mean.
So, like, if you didn't grow up with that stuff, or if you didn't grow up with those things, eventually you got to take accountability for you and your own behavior. And
Hmm.
you're going to have to teach yourself these things and learn these things. And part of it for me is therapy. Therapy. We're in a time now where people are talking about it and it's okay to talk about it. I remember when the family was like, we don't go to psychiatrists, we don't go to therapists. So and so just had a what they used to call it, a breakdown. She had a breakdown. She at home, not doing well. That person probably had depression and anxiety all the time. But since we don't want to go to the psychiatrist or a therapist about it, you can't fix it. But now with a lot of the things where we're learning to take care of ourselves and people are talking about it and that it's okay, that's one of the avenues we have as resolution. You can find somebody who can help you with this trauma, who can help you deal with this emotional state that you're having. One of the other things you touched upon was a lack of emotional intelligence or needing of emotional intelligence. When you say that, what does that look like to you? What does that mean?
So, emotional intelligence, it's very simple to me. I think it is you being able to identify that what you're going through and how what you're going through make other people feel. It's not a fight. So some people get confused and think that have being able to know how to fight in an argument is having emotional intelligence. No, you having a fight. A fight is just like ain't no difference between no fight and no circumstances in the world. If you are in the ring, boxing with some gloves on, the objective in the fight is to win the fight and put this person
Knock
down by
somebody out.
if it's by duration or by them not getting up off the ground. That's what a fight is. A fight is not healthy. We ain't here to give praise to fight. It's not something that we supposed to do in the first place. We supposed to date. But being able to manage yourself in a fight, like that shouldn't be a topic of discussion when it comes down to emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, and I'm gonna give I thought about this on my way in, right? I wanted to use me for emotional intelligence or something that I utilize with emotional intelligence.
You're going to give me a nice
I'm gonna
example,
give you a
right?
nice example. It's a sports example. It's a very good sports example. Um, Growing up, when I played basketball, I was kind of self-taught as a basketball player, and I had my insecurities about playing basketball. And Chicago's a big basketball town. And when I played in high school, I wanted to play on the school basketball team. Um, I was on and off the team or whatever the case might be, but I never got a chance to play the way that I wanted to play. And what happened is that I built up some trauma with that because I was secretly a little envious of the guys that did play, you know. And I'm good friends with all these guys now. I'm very good friends. I mean, none of these guys probably ever know this. But one of the things that I knew that I couldn't handle, right? I couldn't handle being in a setting with them when it came down to playing basketball with the team and stuff like that, and team camaraderie or school camaraderie, because I never felt in the place that they did.
Did you feel like they were so much better than you?
In most cases, they were. Honestly, in most
Okay.
cases, they were. You know, I
That's
mean,
good to be able to admit that
yeah,
truth. That
that's a
they got a skill a little better than what I got.
the facts is that I wanted to be where they was at. Okay, and the facts are is I wasn't where they was at, and another fact was that it affected me. It affected me a lot. So I have struggled throughout the years to do things with these guys because I didn't know how I would respond if something was said to me or something of that nature about basketball. And they like, you never play. I was always afraid of that. So what I did is I removed myself from being in those situations
Mm.
because I don't know how I'm going to respond to them.
Oh
So
shoot, that's too bad because you might be taking yourself out of something good. It's better to learn how to respond, right?
yeah, but that's emotional intelligence, though. That's me being able to gauge that I don't have control over that situation at this moment. And until I do, I shouldn't put myself in a situation that I can't control. That theory works with every single thing in regards of relationship, friendships, family ships, situationships. If you know
Situationships.
that you are dealing with something and you're going through something and you cannot control what that is, you have to be mindful of the people that you interact with because it can come across some type of way. And again, once you do that, now you're putting yourself in a situation now, whatever y'all have an issue with, that becomes king again. It ain't gonna be the issues and the anxiety or the depression or the trauma that you ain't talking about. It's gonna be that particular situation.
Well, we know people aren't going to not get in relationships just because, their self and soul is unhealthy. We're dealing with a lot of that. So it's more, what are you going to do when you're in a relationship like that? Because you could be that person. I'll give myself an example. Younger, we talking decades ago.
Decades?
Decades ago.
Decades be 20, 30.
20, about 30 years ago, in my
Okay, dude.
20s. So lack of trust is something you were discussing and we were talking about in these relationships. And the lack of trust leads men and women to do stuff like driving around your house, trying to see who at your house. Not me, I didn't do that part. But I would go through a young man's phone, sure would, for the call and who he texting. And of course, I found some stuff that would upset me. Yeah.
So my question would be, did that change the next year of the relationship? Could you go through somebody's phone and be able to be okay with what you've seen and say, I'm finna still prosper with this person for the rest of my life?
Not if I found something I didn't like. No, we about to get into it. Like you said, it's going to be a fight. And then we'll talk about there is the appropriate way to argue. A fight is exactly what you said. A fight in the ring means I need to knock you down. I need to win. That means you emotionally knocking this person down. That means you verbally knocking this person down.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, people physically fight, but I'm not talking about that.
Most definitely ain't advocating for that.
I'm talking about the words you use when you're arguing or talking to somebody you love. I think people need to remember, I care about this person. I love this person. Let me monitor my tongue.
I just
But
think
if
that's
we,
so hard to do when you in a fight. When you in a fight,
why it's hard to do?
I'm gonna tell you, because I'm gonna give you a prime example. I got into it when I was a teenager. I knew I was about to get into a fight. So when I got into this, when I was getting ready to get in this fight, I was in high school, right? This guy was like, "Man, I'm going." Ooh, the guy was telling me, he like, when I get through eating this sandwich, I'm gonna slap you, right? This is what he told me. I'm like, I'm
gonna slap you.
I'm like, I'm finna KO this dude, right? Like, he don't even know. Like, I'm finna time him. I did put my foot planted on the ground.
Waiting
I'm
on
sitting there. I'm like, man, this gonna be legendary, right? So he like, as soon as he get through eating this sandwich, right? I'm like, whoa, this finna be legendary, right? And I'm a lefty, right? So I'm like, okay, when I get this guy, all my power is in my left hand. I'm gonna lay him out, right? When that man walked up to me, out of me fighting and not being able to control myself, the first thing I done was swung on him with my right hand.
So did you miss?
Basically, I did. But in my mind, before the fight, I said I was going to do this. I was going to size him up this way. My point of saying that is that there is no way to control your emotions really when you in a fight. That's why we should always avoid being in a fight and leave everything in a discussion form. Going through the phone and things like that, like for the person that goes through the phone, I think they have it to be able to bring the situation to the person the way that they went through their phone. And nine times out of 10,
what does that mean? What that mean?
So listen, you go through the phone, right? So you should be able to go through the phone, find something, and then come to the person appropriately and say, hey, I violate you. I went through your phone. And this is what I saw, and this is what we need to talk about. But that's not what happened. What happens 9 times out of 10, they say, hey, well, back in 1993, what was you doing in 1993?
It ain't that far back, first of all.
93. They gonna go to 93. They want you to know what happened in 93. You like, it's 2024. I don't remember.
First of all, we got to talk about what leads you to do stuff like that. I don't trust him. I don't trust this person. Then this is where your emotional intelligence and introspection comes in. Why are you with him then? Why are you in a relationship with somebody you don't trust?
Great
and
point.
Then here's the thing that gets me is that, oh, you went through my phone. What you mad about me going through your phone for? Why are you upset about that? Because I shouldn't have been going through the phone. I understand. But what I find, you find exactly what you're looking for because I didn't trust you.
I don't think it's one human being that's walking the face of this earth that we live in right now would go through a human being that they love phone and is going to find everything right. I don't think that's possible.
I don't know what you mean by everything right.
So like when you love somebody and you care, okay, when you love, I ain't gonna just say just love, but when you love and you care about someone and your feelings is there, your feelings are attached to the person and you would want them to move in the light that you feel suited for. And that's not possible. So what does that look like? The way I interact with a woman might not be the way you want me to interact with a woman, even though it's not inappropriate.
Well, that's the problem right there. I think that's an issue right there that I want you to behave the way I want you to behave. And I want you to do things the way I want them done. I think that's a huge issue when we talk about relationships between men and women and black men and women.
On both sides, not just on the men's side.
On both sides.
But on the women's side. And I guess the question is how can we get past that, right?
Well, that's what we'll talk about with the solutions. Like, how can we get past the I want you to behave the way I want you to act the way I want you to act. I want you to treat me the way I want to be treated, which that should be easy because I just want you to treat me good. But you need to understand that other person's language. You need to understand that other person's behavior.
I don't think treating good has anything to do with it.
How can you say that?
If a person is unsettled in themselves, the person that they're with, their partner can be treating them good and it still is not enough for them.
That's true. You're right about that part.
So
I agree with you on that part.
I think the very beginning start of it starts with the root of the person. You have to be complete coming in first. If you're not complete, we working backwards going in. We working backwards. I've worked backwards in a lot of relationships where I gave everything. I gave every single thing, and it still wasn't enough. How can I'd have been told that I gave everything, and it's not enough? Like, how is that even logical? Like, how can acknowledge that a person has gave everything they give, and that's still not enough? I don't even think that, like, to me, logically, that don't make any sense.
Was what you said, how they're not settled with themselves. But a lot of us aren't complete when we start our relationships. And a lot of people won't get complete till they're about 50, maybe, or maybe even
And at that
older.
point, that might be.
That means you gotta work at it and work with it.
let's talk about
That's what it
like let's talk
means.
about like right now. How can that look right now? Not waiting. I don't want us as people to wait so late in our lives before we understand what we had, and now we left with picking up the pieces of ourselves. How can we do a better job of managing that now? And I'm gonna just say for me, right? Um, my foundation in rooted in church has been instrumental for me. Um, I went through something in my 30s where I felt like I didn't have any guidance
Hmm.
in myself, not with my mom and my daddy, but I just felt like I was kind of all over the place. I just felt like I was just doing whatever. I wasn't holding myself accountable. I was going out, drinking, partying, I didn't have no nothing. Then I ran into a scare. We'll just say that, right? I ran into a scare, and the scare ran me to church. And the pastor talked about that at church today about, like, when God wants to get your attention, he'll let you go out there. He'll let you go out there, do everything that you want to do, and have you coming running back so you can see what is for you on the other side. And that's exactly my testimony right then and there. Because once I ran out there and did the things I've done, when I came back to the church, I was able to have a clearer picture in my 30s. I was more grounded. And importantly than that, fellowship. I wasn't just going to church, listening to the pastor, going up in there, listening, saying, okay, he had a good message, and then I left up out of there. I started applying myself with fellowship in the church, being in the choir. Like right now, I'm partially in the
You can
choir.
sing. No, spiritual guidance is what you're talking about. So
Spiritual
for
guidance.
me and you, that's church, that's God. For other people, it might be a different a different worship for them. So I'm with you with that part. For me and you, is church and is God. That's a solution.
That's
Spiritual
definitely
guidance.
solutions. Yes.
What's another solution?
Um,
After all, taking accountability for what you've done. You said that you need to be able to take accountability for the maybe the not so good things you've done in life, or maybe the blow ups you've had with people. You do have to take responsibility for that. How about some
parents.
transparency?
Yeah, that was what I was going to say next. To be able to be free and be straightforward with your partner. I think a lot of people make the mistakes, and I have made this mistake in the past too, by not telling the full story, right? I didn't tell the full story.
The pieces you want them to know.
Told 90% of it, but I didn't tell the 10%. And that's something that's going to be tough, because transparency can be taken out of context with the person that you are communicating with, to be judged. And that's the last thing that a person want to do. A person don't want to tell another their partner that they are wanting to build a future with about something that they went through in their past that they was affected by, and or decision making, and then it comes back up later in the conversation,
So like throwing it in your face
throwing
in a
it in their
bad
face,
way is what
or
you're saying.
yep, in a fight, in a
Right, in a
fight,
fight.
in a fight, right?
So then we shouldn't do that. That's one of the things we have. Fighting or we disagreeing, you have to know how to fight and argue. You
Hmm.
have to know what to say and what not to say. I'm guilty of doing that. I done threw stuff in a guy's face a lot. Something he told me or something I found out, but it's because I felt attacked.
Me too.
I felt attacked. So now I'm attacking back.
I mean, and that's one thing I don't have an answer for right now. I don't know how to fully control myself when I feel attacked. I could be a perfect gentleman all across the board, right? I could be perfect. I feel like I can. But when I feel like you
A lot of us
attacking
feel
me,
like we can.
when I feel like I'm being attacked, I feel like I'm in survival mode. Right?
That's a very good way to put it.
I
But
feel like
see,
I'm in
we're not
survival mode.
supposed to be like that with our life partners. I think we need to think about that. Even if you feel attacked, which is what I learned, because that doesn't just show up in my intimate relationships, it showed up in family and friendship.
Mhm.
I had to learn that, okay, this is how you perceive in it. One thing we have to learn when we're talking or arguing, what you say may not be what they hear. So
Mhm.
learning how to disagree or learning how to argue is saying, what you think I just said? What did you hear? What have you heard? Or saying, I heard you say that you don't like the way I look. Or I heard you say, I can't tell you how many times when I used that technique, I was wrong. I was wrong with what I heard. We had to clarify it.
Wow.
So you have to, that's one of the things you have to do when you're not only when you're arguing, but when you're talking to people. What you said isn't what I heard.
Man, when I was going through my divorce some years back, and I felt so stupid. I felt so stupid. Like going through a divorce is one of the worst things that any human being can go through. Like, to me, I'm gonna just be honest with my own personal experience. I feel like it's worse than somebody dying in the family. Like,
Oh, that was bad then. That felt
it
that bad
it,
for
it's-
you.
it feel like the worst thing in the world, because people was dying when I was going through my divorce, and I was numb to it because I was so distraught over my divorce and the custody battle and stuff like that. I just didn't even see it. I'm talking about people close to me was falling off, and I was just like, just in the days. You know what I'm saying? And what happens is that um, what was my point? My point with the I done lost what I was saying with the.
Well, we were talking about knowing how to argue, knowing how to
So I
talk, and
picked it
what
back
you
up.
hear and
So
what you
what I
speak.
hear, right? I was so distraught, right? Oh my God. We was communicating, me and my ex-wife was communicating through an app, and she sent something in, and I thought what she sent in was something that I thought in my mind, and I responded to it. And I'm talking about I went crazy.
So it was negative. You thought it was
It was
something
something
negative.
negative.
You
And
thought.
then when I went back, maybe like 4 months later, and I reread it, I was like, I thought she had said, but it's right here though. And this is why they tell you got to communicate through the app, because you can't control, like, it's all right here. You know what I'm saying? Because when you angry and you upset, it's not a lot of accountability that can go with that. You don't know really what you're doing when you're angry and you're upset. So I thought my perception of what she was saying, it was not actually what it was being said when I went back with a cooler head
With a
4
cooler
months
head.
later.
With a cooler
I was
head.
like, I remember the date, right? So I knew, like, I was like, okay, on this date, this is what happened. And I'm like, no, that wasn't what was said. You
Yeah,
know what
that
I'm saying?
was what was
I'm like,
said.
man, I was wrong. You know what I'm saying?
So we we
Back to the
we
fighting.
we done ran into some good solutions here. So
Mhm.
one, cooler head. First of all, it's okay to take a walk before you start talking. I think people need to understand that. It's okay if you know you that mad. I even had a boyfriend that told me we could talk about this tomorrow because I can already see this ain't getting ready to turn out well.
I want
Cooler
to
head.
can we dive into that for 1 second? What if the person don't want to talk tomorrow?
You can't make anybody talk to you. That's the first thing. But I wish you would have led with this because we could have went a lot of directions with this. We're gonna have to pick this up again and soon. We don't want to leave you without a wrap up. So listen, trust is needed for the relationships between our men and women. Accountability is needed for the relationships to be healthy and successful anyway. Transparency is needed. And definitely to the healing and knowing yourself is needed. That is like the most important, that emotional intelligence you're talking about right there. So, everybody, thank you for tuning in to the Quintessential Queens here, right here on IntellectualRadio.com. I want you to go and subscribe to this channel. There's so many things you can watch. including myself and many, many other shows with many, many topics. Chef Dexter, thank you for being my guest
No
today.
problem, Miss D.
Thank you.
Get your glow up. One time for the babies on the south side.